Hello, my name is Bill Binch. I recently joined Battery Ventures as an operating partner to advise CEOs and sales execs inside the battery portfolio. And it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the next session, Kelly Wright, President and COO of revenue intelligence platform Gong. Earlier in her career, Kelly was Tableau's first sales hire, where she grew into their EVP of sales and led the company through its IPO. Fast forward to today, Kelly, in addition to her role at Gong, is an advisor and board member to several private and public companies, as well as an adjunct professor at the University of Washington. She's an expert in building and leading software sales orgs and will be sharing some lessons she's developed in growing companies past $1 billion. And a fun fact before I turn it over, Kelly and I share a close kinship. While she was at Tableau and I was at Marketo, both companies IPO'd on the NASDAQ and Wall Street on the same day in New York City. So Kelly, with that, take it away.
Thank you so much, Bill. It is great to be here. And I was going to share that story too. So that's how Bill and I ended up meeting is we went public on the same day. And thank you, Battery, for having me. And I feel very honored and humbled to be participating in this day together with so many other fantastic leaders. And thank you for tuning in. We're going to talk today just about 10 lessons from what I've learned from scaling from $0 to $1 billion. So these are lessons learned, whether it was at Tableau, at Gong, from other companies where I've been an advisor or on the board. And let's just run through these and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So first lesson, we're gonna start 10 and go down to number 1. 10, avoid playing whack-a-mole. Now, what I have found in my career is there's so many companies that they get sucked into playing this game of competitive whack-a-mole. And what they do is a competitor comes out with a new feature, a new product, a new offering, and everyone's trying to always be whacking down so that they can keep up with the competition. Not only the competitive whack-a-mole, but customers will always be pulling us in all different directions. They want this feature, they want this pricing, they want this customization. And it's really important to be able to stay true to where you're going and what is your own destiny so that you don't get sucked in to being in reactive mode and always playing whack-a-mole. So that's the first one. Number 9, reduce fire drills. We all know when we are building a hyper-growth company, there are fire drills all the time. And they're not only exhausting, but they're super distracting. And when we think about fire drills, it really comes to having a plan. Not only having a plan, but being able to balance between the urgent and the important. And this is much more difficult if you don't have a plan, because we can all be sucked in to the urgent every day. We can just be locked down by our Slack channels and our inbox or whatever that customer request is. And so each day it's really important to be able to say, what do I need to get done today, this week, this month, this quarter, this year, whatever it is, to make sure that we're avoiding the fire drills as much as possible and proactively carving out the time to be able to get our most important things, not only the urgent things done. Number 8, and we'll spend a few minutes on this. Great products need great selling. So all of us are here because we all are representing fantastic companies that have amazing product market fit. And most of the companies, if not all, are growing so fast. And customers love what we're offering. And when it comes to early adoption and then even the early majority, customers just, they can't get what we have enough. And so sometimes it's easy to get distracted. I remember at both at Tableau and at Gong, people say, wow, these products are so good. They just sell themselves. Absolutely not true. Great products need great selling. They need great salespeople. They need great marketers because great products don't market themselves. And many of the companies now are product-led growth. Now at both Tableau and Gong, there's components of product-led growth, but we were always from in using salespeople at the beginning. There's others that start with this low-hanging fruit, the self-serve, where people can just go start using your product from the get-go, and that's product-led growth, and that's fantastic. But we have to remember they still need selling. They still need great go-to-market engines. And it's not only with landing the first logo, it's also as we start thinking about customer success. Great products don't deploy themselves. They don't drive adoption themselves. So just like great products need great selling, great products also need great customer success. And sometimes companies don't invest enough ahead of the curve, especially for those product-led growth companies who are just used to it working on its own. Number 7, leverage data and reality. Now, this is to the heart of what I've always done. Data and reality is core to everything that I've done in my career. At Tableau, our mission was to help people see and understand data, all around data. And at Gong, it's about unlocking reality to help people and companies reach their full potential. Now, here's the thing. Companies are all collecting data. They're collecting data and they're looking at the data, but are companies and are you in your company as you're building and scaling and growing, are you harnessing the value in the insights of your data enough? And many times what happens is because there's so much data, but everyone's moving so fast, they have some standard reporting and dashboards that you look at, but then people aren't actually driving the insights to be able to know, are we making the right investments? Is there anything that we need to do to tweak our sales motion and our go-to-market? What are our customers using, and how can we optimize our product roadmap to make sure that we're spending and investing our time on the areas that the data is showing that our customers love or where our customers are getting stuck? And this is the reason, one of the reasons that I came to Gong is to be able to unlock this reality so that we're not relying on just hunches and opinions. Hunches and opinions are good, but we need to be able to validate that with data and to validate our opinions with the truth and then the reality. At Tableau, we had what we called Alpo. We eat our own dog food. Everyone in the company use Tableau to be able to understand what's happening with our data. At Gong, we have the same thing, Gong on Gong. Make sure whatever it is that you are harnessing your data so that you can leverage what is happening with your customers and what's happening with your team internally so that you can go faster. Number 6, and this one is really important, focus. Focus, focus, focus. And everyone tells us this, and we all think we're doing it, but we have to actually take a moment and reflect and say, are we actually focusing on the highest priority issues? When we're at a startup, there's so many things, and many of us are working at companies where the TAM is so massive. We have so many different customer personas. We could work in all different industries. We have multi-products. We have all these different platforms. We're growing so quickly. We're going international. We're trying to go up market and down market at the same time, building self-service. Well, what are our main rocks and tenets? How can we have our top 3 priorities? It's very hard to focus on more than 3 and make sure that we know what those 3 priorities are. And this is also why it's important to have a plan. When you have a plan, it's easier to avoid the fire drills when everyone knows what are the top priority issues. Focus, focus, focus. Now, one of the ways that we can all take advantage of this here is because we all are offering different products and features that allow people to leverage AI, ML, and the product to be more effective. We're helping people to focus and giving them more autonomous engines to be able to make progress fast themselves. Number 5, communicate, collaborate, and align. We all know that when we grow fast, it's easy to get silos. People are always saying, what happens when sales and marketing aren't aligned? Or when sales is selling something that product isn't building? And this comes back to making sure that we have alignment from the top all the way down? Is everyone aligned on what those top 3 focus priorities are? Does everyone know what our plan is? And then as you drive this alignment, you can have more collaboration and communication to make sure that the whole organization is working in harmony. Number 4, hiring is job number 1. What could be more important than who we're hiring and how we're attracting, retaining, and then developing those people? Oftentimes what happens is early days, executive teams, founders, managers are all about hiring. Hey, I have to get those right hires who are going to culturally add to our company, who are going to roll up their sleeves and be the missionaries and be able to drive what we need to do. And what I've seen is companies, as they scale and grow, they often say, well, I have so much stuff to do, that they start focusing on hiring as someone else's problem. They push hiring to human resources and to the talent team and to recruiting. But let's all ask ourselves, who is actually accountable? Whose ownership is it when you're not getting the right people on your team? It's all of us as executives, as founders, as frontline managers, as leaders. It's our job to hire. Now at Tableau, we used to tell everyone that every single sales leader, all the way up to the exec and CEO, should be spending at least 2 hours every single day on hiring. That might be interviewing, but if you don't have an interview, what are you doing to prime the pump for your candidate pipeline? What are you doing to continue to look through your LinkedIn, to be able to look at your network? And now it's so important with diversity. What are we doing to invest in those different diverse channels to make sure we have diversity of thought and diversity of voices on our team? And as we know, A players hire A players, B players hire B players, C players hire C players. So if we want to be able to get those A players, how can we keep the bar really, really high on hiring? Another thing I've seen is as companies grow, they tend to focus so much on experience and resume fit and trying to put people into this small box that they might not always be aligned on those core values, on your operating principles. They might not be able to add to the culture of your company. And our bar as we grow should continue to get higher, not lower. And sometimes it's so easy to say, hey, I just talked to 15 candidates. I'm going to hire the best of the 15, even though no one's really an A+. And although that's hard for the company to go with someone not in that seat, it is better to hold and wait for the most important critical hire to make sure we're always getting those A players. And also for everyone on our team to realize it's our accountability as leaders, not just HR and talent. They're a partner, but hiring is our important job. That's number 4. Number 3, core values really matter. They're not just words on a wall. Whether you call them core values or operating principles, this is really the pulse. This is the personality of what makes your company shine. And this is also how your company weaves together the fabric of how you interact with each other and how you make decisions. And so many companies also, when they're thinking about the core values, they put these words on a wall, but then they don't live and breathe them. These should permeate through everything that we do in terms of behavioral interviewing of who we hire. Are we assessing operating principles and core values in the interview process? In our performance management, are we managing this and people are getting additional grants or promotions or more opportunities based on actually living and breathing and showcasing how they live by these core values? And then also they should reflect who we truly are. One thing I've learned in my advising is sometimes companies want to have these aspirational core values of who they think they want to be. But just like each person has a unique personality, Each company has a unique personality, and those core values should reflect, be authentic to who you actually are. Who authentically are you? And how do the best people thrive? What are their core values and how do they operate? So core values should mean something, and they should reflect who you are, not only who you aspire to be. So 2 concrete examples. These are Gong's core values here on the page. And we talk about them all the time at every meeting and hiring. But one, just to give an example, challenge conventional wisdom. Challenge conventional wisdom permeates through everything that Gong does. And some of you, if you're not familiar with Gong, you may see it just in the way that we show up from marketing. We have these bold colors. We have these different blurbs of these different shapes. We have a dog that is on our website. We do things that are a bit different and very catchy. They emotionally connect with people. We're very active in social media. It's a different way. And this is one of the things we ask everyone to do, is to challenge conventional wisdom of how they think about new ideas, about thinking big and being bold, about being able to hear and surface other people's voices. At Tableau, one of our core values there was simplicity. And sometimes reps or even outside community members would say, hey, at Tableau, why do you only have a couple products? You have this desktop product, a server product, the online product. Most companies have pages and pages of different products so that they can give the sales reps more to put in their bag. Yeah, that worked for many companies. At Tableau, though, we wanted to keep it simple. That was a core value. And so we wanted to keep the price book simple, the product suite simple. And it all kind of comes back to those core values. Number 2, mission first. Now, anyone that knows me knows I'm always talking about mission. In fact, this is so important to me that I decided to build a course that I teach at University of Washington at the Foster School of Business. And it's a go-to-market strategy course talking about how everything actually flows first from the mission and vision, the true north of the company. And then it incorporates these core values to help the company to tell the strategic narrative. And many companies, they might have a tagline or they have their product market fit, but they're not as tied to a specific statement of a mission that helps to articulate who they are, why they exist. What is the essence of your company? Why is it that you're all on this journey building something together? And mission is important, not only to just have this mission statement, it's not just a marketing thing. And many companies think mission is just because you need to have something on the about page. It's more than that. What mission does is it's this glue that brings everyone together. It helps to identify where is the true north. What is everyone driving towards? And it also helps to have a unified sense of purpose. And this purpose helps for all constituents, for everyone internally on your team, for your employees. What is your unified mission? This helps to drive that alignment and communication that we talked about earlier. Everyone knows what they're building, what they're driving for. It gives people a sense of purpose to be tied to that impact. This mission is important for our customers because they want to know, who are you? Why are you different from all of the other competitors out there? What is the platform, or what is the product, or what is the suite of offerings that you're doing, and how is it different? And how can I understand where you fit in that ecosystem? It's important for all of us who are doing category creation because we're trying to create or augment or enhance a category. And we need to be able to tell that strategic narrative to all of the industry analysts. And if we're going to go public, we need to be able, and if we aren't public, even with our venture capitalists, for all investors to be able to tell that narrative of who are we, why do we exist. So mission comes first and everything else flows for that. It's also very hard to have focus if we aren't all clear on where we're driving towards. And then number 1, last, certainly not least, and this is my favorite takeaway. If you take nothing else, take number 1. And it's people, people, people. So in my journey, whether I was at Tableau or on the board, whether it was a private company, public company, in teaching, now at Gong, people are always asking me, hey, Kelly, based on this stage, what should be our 3 top priorities? And maybe they're saying, well, we're building to 50 million, or we're on the stage from 100 million to a billion, or maybe we're going global, maybe upmarket, maybe trying to become multi-product company, whatever it is. And oftentimes people think I'm going to have a different answer depending on what stage. Now, of course, there need to be those company priorities, and the priorities change, strategic company annual priorities change depending on your stage. But the global priorities for me will be the same at every company, at every stage in perpetuity. Well, people ask me my top priorities. My number 1 priority, people. Number 2 priority is people. And you can probably guess, number 3 priority is people. People are who build your products and services. People sell to your customers. People engage and support your customers. People hire other people, and then people are those who manage your teams of people. People make all your decisions. If you have the wrong people in seat, even if you have amazing product market fit and the timing is great and the customers love you, then you're going to run into a lot of challenges. If you have all the right people, even if we have bumps along the road, which we all absolutely will, people are the ones that can go and fix it, and people bring the ideas. So it's people who build companies. And if nothing else, we just need to remember, how are we prioritizing our people so that they have a great place to work? We're surfacing diverse voices, allowing people to bring their best authentic self to work. Because if we empower those people and we focus on hiring as job number 1 to promote those people, then we're going to have a fantastic place to work. And those people will be set up to build truly fantastic companies. So in closing, those are the 10 fast lessons that I've learned. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Bill to see if there's any questions.
Kelly, thanks so much for sharing your life lessons, your work lessons with us. No surprise, based on your experience, there's some real authenticity in there and reinforcement of things like people, mission, values. There's so much out of there that I think everybody that's leading a company can take away. So, to dive into a couple of questions, I would love to explore a couple of areas. I'll start on your lesson number 8, the great products need great selling concept. We're familiar that most companies, as they grow, they start to segment their sales team. Next, they expand geographically. But what about having more than one sales motion? You've mentioned product led, you've mentioned sales led. Can you expand a little bit more on the trend that we're seeing around having multiple motions?
Oh, absolutely, Bill. And this is something, it can be really challenging, not only for the go-to-market leader, but for everyone in the company as we have different motions. Like if I think about at Tableau, we started with this high velocity sales motion for inside sales. And then we want to go up market where you're doing enterprise and field selling, and that requires multi-level engagement, more alignment with strategic priorities and initiatives than what happens with feature function selling. And that's actually something that we're doing right now at Gong as well. Now, oftentimes there's companies, these product-led growth companies, that they have this whole self-service motion too that is more marketing-led. And so you have this marketing motion, but then once you get the customer in, you still need to be able to expand by having a customer success motion. So you think about these different motions, and there's this self-serve motion, there's this marketing motion, there's high velocity inside sales motion, there's multi-level enterprise field motion. There's also channel motion. Like if you're going to go leverage your partnerships and have global system integrators or resellers or even tech partners, you have to have a slightly different value proposition of why that partner wants to come work with you. And then lastly, you need to have this customer success motion because you want to expand on your NDR. You want people to continue to be successful and drive adoption. And it can be really complicated. Now, here's a couple just lessons learned here. One is this is where mission becomes super important. Because if you have all these different motions and people aren't aligned on who are you as a company and authentically like what is your true north, you have companies going in different directions and that can get confusing. The second thing that's really important with these different motions is if you have a strategic narrative, that strategic narrative should overarch and be relevant for all of your different motions. So if you have customers all in a room at a customer conference and they ask what you do, regardless if it's an inside sales small SMB, whether it's a channel partner, or whether it's one of the global 10, they all can articulate what you do and what value you bring in the same way. But then you do have to optimize those different sales motions. And that's where it gets tricky from organizational design to make sure we have the right people leading the right teams with those different motions.
Yeah, thanks for the double click there because it is becoming more and more sophisticated today. It reminds me of being in Tokyo while I was with Pendo and Pendo's CEO. And it was a real true test of what you just said there of how do you articulate what your value proposition is to a market that's probably much less mature than your main market and speaks a language not called English. So really good challenge there. So thanks again for the double click there. Another question that came in here was around your lesson number 4, hiring. Hiring is job number 1. You talk about delegating it versus owning it. And I think there's a very important nuance there. I'd love to hear you say more about owning the hiring.
Well, you know, we could do a whole session, Bill, on just on hiring. I think the challenge, what happens is that what happens is leaders get so busy of running the operational cadence of the business. It's easy to say, I have a whole bunch of hiring to do. I'll get to that tomorrow. Or I'm going to delegate that to someone else. I'm going to go delegate that to the hiring team and the TA team. And of course, we couldn't do what we do without having hiring and TA. But we want to make sure that we're involved in it and we're being, so how some tangible things we can do. One, being very, very clear on what is most important in the job description. This is where companies sometimes get tripped up. They say, hey, I want to hire a director of enterprise. I want to hire an account executive. I want to hire a head of finance for FP&A. What is it that you actually want that person to do? And make sure everyone's aligned on it. So that's number one. Number 2 is what are the behavioral traits that we want to be fleshing out for this person? And this is one of the things I talked about earlier is oftentimes people, is there an echo for you? I'm hearing a little bit of an echo.
Slightly.
Okay. So oftentimes what happens is people are trying so hard for experience and resume, they don't spend enough time on that on the core values. And that we have to be really, really careful on. And then the third is we need to illustrate and demonstrate that we're putting in the time. We're asking our team to put in the time, and we need to put in the time to showcase that this is a high priority. The thing where people get most behind is they're not always proactively building a talent pipeline. And then when you need the position, you're already behind. So just like with sales, we're always looking at the top of the funnel with our customers. We always need to be looking at the top of the funnel with our talent pipeline.
Well, Kelly, that's great. I always enjoy talking with you and could fire away several more questions, but I see that we're coming up on time. We're coming up on our break. So I just want to thank you again for you spending the time with us and delivering the authentic lessons that you've put together and being able to articulate them to our audience. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Bill, for having me. And thank you to everyone else here. I think one of the cool things about having this community is that we can all help and learn from each other. And I certainly have run into so many things over the course of my career that many of the people here on the call have been so, so helpful to me. So thank you, and appreciate you inviting me to participate.